Good morning and thank you for joining us. We are in Lakeville, Massachusetts this morning. Beautiful little town in southeast Mass where they have, I think it's almost 4,000 acres of ponds and lakes, and the global headquarters of Ocean Spray, the cranberry people. We're here on a cold in place recycling job this morning, and what we'd like to do is, for those of you that aren't able to get out and travel as much as you usually would in the past, we wanted to take this opportunity to do a Facebook Live video and show you the cold in place recycling process. So we are here this morning. I'm Dan Patnode, by the way, with Indus, the sales and marketing manager at Indus, and I'm here with my camera lady, Christy DeCesare, who's on the other side of the iPhone camera this morning. And we are on Freetown Street in Lakeville. It's a little over a mile long. I think it's 6,200 feet long by about 24 feet wide. And we are doing our cold in place recycling process. The cold in place recycling process, in a nutshell, is a process to treat poor roads that are too far deteriorated for a shallow melon fill, but not deteriorated so much that they need full depth reclamation. So if Christy, you can show a picture of the existing pavement here, you can see it's fairly heavily distressed. We wouldn't want to do just a shallow, say, 1.5 to 2 inch deep melon fill. If we did that, the repair wouldn't last very long. But it's also not distressed enough that it justifies full depth reclamation. So these are the types of roads that are appropriate for cold in place recycling. And the first thing we do as part of the candidate evaluation process, after we've looked at the distresses and decided that, yeah, cold in place recycling could be a viable option for this road, is we come out and do extensive coring of the road. For this particular road, like I said, it's about 6,200 feet long. We sent our coring crew out and they collected a little over 30 cores from the pavement. Okay. And the cores ranged in depth from a minimum of 4 inches thick to a maximum of 8 or 8.5 inches thick, which seems kind of surprising that there'd be that much variability to the pavement thickness, but we find that on a lot of our CIR jobs. So there's two purposes of why we do that coring. One is so that we know exactly how thick the pavement is and can work with a client in determining how deep we want to recycle. The other reason we do those cores is so that we have samples of the material to be able to send off to our lab who does the mix designs for us. The mix designs are done by a lab called American Engineering and Testing out in St. Paul, Minnesota. They have a lot of experience with cold in place recycling. We ship them about 300 to 350 pounds of the cores, which they then break down to replicate the wrap that we're producing on the job and do a mix design for us. And when they've completed the mix design, they send us a report like this, multiple page report, and based on some strength testing and stability testing that they do with that material, they come back to us with this mix design. And for this particular project, they recommend that we add stabilizing agents that include 2% new PG binder and 1% Portland cement. So essentially what we're doing here is we're taking this old beat up asphalt pavement and we're adding these new stabilizing, rejuvenating agents to re-strengthen the pavement and lay it right back down in place. And then the town will come in when we're done recycling in a few days and apply a finished wearing course, which for this project, the town has selected an 1.5 inch hot mix asphalt overlay. And that'll be the finished product. Some of the big advantages to cold in place recycling, it really kind of touches all the buttons on the sustainability, for sustainability. For example, from an environmental standpoint, because we're recycling existing and reusing existing materials in place, we greatly reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions and energy consumption required to rehabilitate this pavement. So big environmental savings. Societal benefits include reduction and disruption to the neighbors. As in a few minutes here, we're going to walk up and walk through the train. You'll see that it's a pretty small train of equipment, short and linked, so that in one continuous process we can take this old beat up asphalt and turn it into something pretty nice and be driving on it a short time later. so nowhere near as disruptive as, say, full depth reclamation. And that works out especially well for the traffic that uses the road, the neighbors that live on the road, any neighboring businesses, by reducing that disruption. And then the third sustainability benefit is the economic benefit. And that's probably the #1 reason why most of our clients choose cold in place recycling. To produce about the same strength of pavement and life extension of the rehabilitation treatment, we can do that with this process at substantially less cost than a deeper mill and fill or full depth reclamation. So that's the reasons why people like to do cold in place recycling. So the crew's starting to catch up to us here. Why don't we just take a quick walk up through, and we will give you a step-by-step description of each step in the process. Before we do that, I did just want to show you a sample of what the cold in place recycling material looks like when we're done. This is a sample that was taken off the first job that we did, which was Pond Street in Braintree. We did that job 3 years ago. This is an actual sample of material from the road that we cut up. So you can see this particular section is about 4.5 inches thick. A very durable, strong, long-lasting rehabilitation repair. It's essentially taking old beat-up asphalt and turning it into something new that looks like that. So on most jobs that we do, the first process that has to be completed before we start recycling is utility adjustments. Things like manholes, sewer manholes, catch basins, water valves. They all have to be dropped down and plated below the recycling depth. Then we recycle, and after recycling, we raise those utilities back to grade. This particular road, being a more rural road in Lakeville, doesn't have any structures, so that we didn't need to do any of that work. But on most jobs, we'll typically have a day or two of structure dropping that has to be done before we start recycling. Once we're on the job with equipment, typically the first piece of equipment going down the road is a small mill. It has about a 4-foot wide cutting head on it. And what we're typically doing with that mill is we're removing a volume of material that gives us room to put a new asphalt overlay on the road without negatively impacting adjacent driveways and side streets. After we do that pre-milling on most jobs, and we're not doing that here today because it's a rural road and doesn't require that we hold down the finished height of the project. The next step in the process is to spread the cement, which is what this special truck is here that Christy's showing you in the video. That's a unique drop spreader truck for the Portland cement. For this particular job, I mentioned earlier, the mix design came back at 1% Portland cement, and that's 1% by weight of the wrap that we're recycling. We're recycling this project 4 inches deep. I mentioned the cores range from 4 inches to 8.5 inches deep, so we worked with the town of Lakeville and decided on a 4-inch recycle depth with an 1.5-inch hot mix overlay. With 1% cement recycling 4 inches deep, it works out to just under 4 pounds of Portland cement per square yard. So that's what that truck right there is dropped on the pavement ahead of the recycler, is about 4 pounds per square yard of Portland cement. See this existing pavement that we're working on, pretty beat up. A lot of people, when they would look at a road like this, they'd say, okay, clearly that's too beat up for an 1.5 or 2-inch mill and repave. So they would automatically default to full depth reclamation. This is a perfect example of why you don't automatically have to default to such an expensive and disruptive repair. This is a perfect cold in place recycling candidate. You can tell that even though there's an extensive amount of the stresses that are occurring here, they're not load related stresses, they're more age related distresses. if we had seen some deep wheel path rotting or some depressions because the underlying sub-base subgrade wasn't strong enough to carry the loads, then maybe full depth reclamation would have been a better solution, but that's not the case on this particular pavement. So you can see now we're behind in the train, we're behind the cement spreader truck. You can see the dry Portland cement spread on the existing pavement ahead of the recycling equipment. Part of our equipment train up here, what you'll see combined the big recycler machine, which is a Workin 3800, and connected to that recycler is our two trucks. One is a water tanker and the other is an asphalt cement tanker. The water tanker is providing just a little bit of water into the system. We use water for two things. We use water to create the foamed asphalt, typically just about 2% by weight of the PG binder that we're adding. And then the water, the other portion of the water that's needed is a little bit of compaction water to help aid in us getting densities in the back. So in conjunction with the water truck is the asphalt cement tanker. This is not emulsion we're using, this is foamed asphalt. So it's 100% PG binder, heated up to 320, 330 degrees Fahrenheit, and pumped back from the tanker truck into the recycler. And as we get up closer to that, I'll explain the foamed asphalt process a little further. So this first truck you see here, that's the water truck. Connected to the truck behind it, which is the asphalt cement truck, and there's a hose carrying the water from the back end of the water truck through the chassis of the asphalt cement truck and to the recycler, which is the third piece of equipment in the train here. Truck again is the asphalt cement truck. You can see that's connected to the recycler. You can see that large silver hose. It's also connected between the asphalt truck and the recycler. That's carrying the PG, the straight PG asphalt binder from the tanker into the recycling drum. The main workhorse of the CIR operation. It's a Workin 3800 recycling machine. It looks like a big milling machine, except there's two main differences. One, if we were milling on this job, the recycler would be going in the other direction, putting the millings into a truck to be hauled away from the job. We're not hauling the millings away here, we're reusing them on the site. The other big difference is this machine is down cutting instead of upcutting the pavement. If we were milling, we'd want to be upcutting because we're trying to get as much material out of here and off the job as quickly as possible. But when we're doing cold in place recycling, we want to down cut to better control our particle sizes. We're trying to keep 95 to 100% of our wrap particles under the inch and a half sieves. So it's important to be down cutting those to control their size better than you can if we were upcutting. The drum width on this machine is 12 foot 6 inches wide. So the nice thing about that is we can do a whole lane width in one pass. Across the width of that cutting drum are 18 nozzles. The 18 nozzles are used to inject the foamed asphalt into the millings, into the wrap. What those foamed asphalt injectors do is they take that PG binder that's heated up to 320, 330 degrees Fahrenheit and just mist in a little water. I think it's 2% water by weight of the binder, plus a little bit of compressed air. And when you do that, the asphalt explodes. It foams up to about 15 times its normal volume. And then in an expanded state, it grabs the fine particles from the wrap, creates mortar balls, which then glue the larger wrap particles together to create a non-continuous coating. It's almost like, think of a mason with a trowel of mortar sticking two blocks or two bricks together. That's what we're doing with this foamed asphalt process. So then we're taking those wrap particles that have been rejuvenated with new Portland cement, new PG binder, and instead of trucking them away, we convey them from the recycler into this paver. You can see on this road, if you can see we're recycling, it looks to be about 3.5 or 4 inches deep right now. They'll adjust the depth of the recycle sometimes as they go down the road. We don't want to be adding any of the underlying sub-base soils or gravel. In with the wrap, we want to make sure it's 100% asphalt pavement, not underlying soil. If you include underlying soil, then that's what reclamation is, full depth reclamation. Hey Frank, how are you? We're out here doing a Facebook Live. Yeah, I'm excited about this. Awesome. Yeah. We'll be done shooting this video in another 5 minutes. So from here on back, it looks like almost any paving job you can see. So we're bringing the wrap that's been stabilized with Portland cement and PG binder up into the paver hopper, and then we have this Vogeli paver with a real heavy screed on it that allows us to get good compaction right off the back of the screed. Keeping in mind that most recycle jobs are 3 to 5 inch deep recycle layers. Compaction is key, so we start out with a very heavy screed, as you can see there. Maybe Chrissy, you can kind of zoom in and see how heavy duty a screed that is. Watch your back. Big truck coming. Christy's showing you there the material. So it doesn't look like traditional blacktop paving. It looks almost like a dry binder mix, and that's essentially what we're creating here. We're taking that, in this case, 4 inches of existing asphalt, adding the new asphalt cement, new Portland cement, creating a binder mix, and then the town's planning to put an 1.5 inch hot mix overlay on top of that. One of the key elements of our QC program with cold in place recycling is compaction. Again, these are thicker layers that we're placing, typically anywhere between 3 and 5 inches. This particular job is 4 inches. So aside from that really heavy screed on the back of the paver, we also utilize 2 very heavy rollers. The first roller is this breakdown roller. It's a HOM 120. I believe it's rated at 14 tons static equivalent. And we keep that as close as we can behind the paver in full vibratory mode to provide as much initial compaction as we can possibly get. our traffic control officers this morning. Oh, yeah. That's an important part of the job. So good here to see side by side the recycle lane on the other side of the road and the other lane on this side yet to be recycled. This job is expected to take about 2 days. I think it's 16 or 17,000 square yards. Be a little tough to get it all done in one day, so I think they planned it to do 2 days. So probably they'll do one lane today, and depending on the weather forecast tomorrow, maybe stop the day or turn around and head back in the other direction depending on the forecast for some rain tomorrow. Pictures here of this existing pavement show exactly the types of pavements that are perfect CIR candidates. So that was the HOM double drum steel vibratory roller with a 14-ton static equivalency rating. We use that, as I mentioned, as a breakdown roller right behind the paver. Behind the HOM double drum steel roller, we have this rubber tired roller. It's a Sakai pneumatic roller. Very unique in that it also has a vibratory mode capability. I believe it's the only rubber tired roller available with a vibratory mode, and in full vibe mode it offers a 27-ton static equivalency rating. So that's how we get the final compaction of that 3 to 5 inch thick layer.
Great jobs. No questions came in.
So you can see from a picture of the mat, it's almost to where it needs to be compaction wise. We don't have time to get down to the other end of the job, but on every job as part of our QC program, we have an independent testing company here. On this job, I think we're using ATC, Atlantic Testing Company, and they'll have one of their nuclear density gauge operators working with our roller operators to set up roller patterns. And what we're looking to achieve is a 95% of the target maximum densities on these mats. So they'll stay on this, rolling this until we get to at least 95%, usually 96, 97, 98 is what we're able to achieve. And then within a couple of days, the road will be ready for paving. The last step, and we won't be able to show it to you here today because we're a little short for time, but after we've achieved the densities that we're looking for, that 95% minimum, then we'll apply a fog seal on top of this cold in place recycling. We apply a fog seal for two reasons. One, it helps keep the traffic from picking the fines out of the recycle mat. And the other reason is to keep the moisture, if we have a lot of rain, to keep the moisture from soaking into the mat. It might take the town sometimes as much as 2 weeks if they're scheduling the paver or we're scheduling the paver before they come in here. So it's a way to protect the integrity of the mat from picking of the fines from traffic or from moisture intrusion, which can lead to some damage. We apply this fog seal. It's just a very thin application of asphalt, maybe a tenth of a gallon, 12/100ths of a gallon per square yard, just enough to hold the fines in and keep the water out. And that's the last step. That fog seal is the last step in the CIR process before the installation of the wearing course, Most of our customers put an 1.5-inch hot mix overlay on as the wearing course, but other options include things like tape seals, microsurfacing, chip seal. So any wide array of finished wearing courses, whatever is the community's preference, will work for that. So that's it. We wish you were here live with us this morning so we could have a conversation and answer your questions, but that'll have to wait for another day. We appreciate you joining us here. This is our first attempt at Facebook Live. Definitely outside my comfort zone doing it, but we gave it our best shot, and we'll probably do it again sometime soon. And again, thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Thank you.